Sam Harris, in his book, The End of Faith, says that the Christians bear a big responsibility for slavery. And yet slavery has existed for millennia in every known civilization. For many centuries, slavery needed no defenders because it had no critics. It was like the family, taken pretty much for granted. Only in one civilization, the civilization called Christendom, did slavery become controversial. And some people say, well, we had to wait till the Enlightenment and the modern period for that to happen. Not true. Slavery was in fact withered and abolished in Western civilization and in Europe, largely between the 4th century and the 10th century. Then there was a second anti-slavery movement in the modern era, in which groups of Quakers and evangelical Christians began to take the idea, a theological idea, that we're created equal in the eyes of God, and to draw from that a political lesson. Namely, no man has the right to rule another man without consent. And by the way, this idea becomes not only the moral root of abolition or anti-slavery, it's also, if you think about it, it's also the moral root of democracy. Why? Because democracy is based on the idea that no man, no person has the right to rule another without consent. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that whatever you think of God, even if you're not a believer, it seems to me to be the beginning of intellectual and historical honesty to acknowledge that all of us, Christian and non-Christian alike, are in fact standing on a pillar that we ought to respect and acknowledge. In some senses, even the values that Christopher Hitchens stands by would not be here, and he wouldn't hold them if it wasn't for the role of Christianity in the world. I want to suggest that even modern science is rooted in not just theist, but specifically Christian assumptions. This seems a little bit strange to some people because they say, oh, science is based on reason, but religion is based on faith. Actually, that's not so. Science, too, is based on 3 faith-based propositions that can in no way be derived from reason, and in fact are the direct legacy of Christian theology. What are those 3 faith-based propositions? Number 1, we live in a rational universe. That's not exactly obvious. You or I can be rational because we have a brain. The universe, as far as we know, does not possess a brain, and yet it is presumed to be rational. The universe is also presumed by modern science to be lawful, to have operations that can be described in the lawful language of mathematics. And finally, not only is the universe presumed to be rational and lawful, but the rationality of the world out there is presumed by modern science to be mirrored in the rationality of our own minds. If you think about it, that's the strangest fact of all. Your brain is made up of atoms and molecules and neurons and circuits. Why should all the worrying that's going on in here have a one-to-one correspondence with the rotation of the planets, or E equals mc squared, or any of the stuff going on out there? Why should there be a match between the two? What is the reason?